Be careful what you post or you might get the thought police turn up at your door. Now, I've had to record this 2 or 3 times because I don't want to laugh too much during the first bit of the video. Now, this is both hilariously ridiculous and quite serious at the same time. But this one lady, even though the police later admitted that there was actually no crime and there was nothing to actually pursue, these guys actually turned up on her doorstep, quizzed her for 6 minutes because someone had made a complaint about something that she'd posted online. These were detectives. There was a detective sergeant and another officer turned up at her door and questioned her about something that she'd posted. Now, what she posted, in short, was really calling for the resignation of counsellors that have been caught up in these WhatsApp messages that in and of themselves were unbecoming of counsellors, and they ought to resign if that's the case, because they hadn't really ought to be making those kind of messages. Now, I'm absolutely gobsmacked that I have to talk about this. But I will say, I've said for the longest time, I support the police, I respect the police, and I try to support them in the work that they do. They have a difficult job to do. There's a lot of crime going on, there's a lot of horrific attacks going on, there's a lot of theft, there's a lot of burglary, there's a lot of illicit substance abuse type cases going on all the time. Lots and lots of serious cases. Why on earth are the police wasting time with cases like this? Ironically, if they are hinting that what she's doing might be some kind of harassment, ironically, it might well be the police that's conducting some kind of harassment against her. Because if it's unnecessary interruption of her right to a private life, then that might be crossing a boundary for the police to be investigating this ridiculous nonsense in the first place. Let's have a look at what exactly was going on here. Now, these 2 plainclothes officers arrived at, and this is an exclusive in the Daily Mail. Do go to their website, visit their website. That helps their sponsors and everything else. That's how the media works. 2 plainclothes, I'll link it below. 2 plainclothes police officers turned up at her door, demanded to talk to her after she was commenting on the offensive messages shared in this Labour WhatsApp group, which was exposed earlier this month. And that obviously led to the sacking of Health Minister Andrew Gwynn and suspension of 11 other Labour councillors. And so she obviously made comments on this saying that they should resign, or words to that effect. It says here she'd repeatedly posted that he must resign. And that was in another closed group for Heaton's Hub or something, and another publicly available page called Reddish Matters. In another post, she said, "Let's hope he does the decent thing and resigns. I somehow think his ego won't allow it." Now, this is perfectly permissible public commentary. She's entitled to her views, she's entitled to make those views, etc. But nonetheless, these police officers, detective police officers, turned up at her door. I don't know what quite they were detecting, but they said that they had this complaint and they had to turn up and discuss this with her. She asked them, have I committed any sort of crime? Why did you call at my door? She said. They said, someone has spoken to us about your social media posts. She then said, well, if I don't take your advice and I continue doing what I'm doing, will I be committing a crime? They said, no. She then said, well, what would you do about it then? And he said, well, there's not a lot we can do. We are just giving you advice. So, again, I find this utterly ridiculous. But they were there for 6 minutes to advise that she was the subject of a complaint of harassment and that they were there to answer any questions that she might have. But no further action was necessary, they said, because no crime's been committed. They said they're under a duty to inform her that she's the subject of a complaint. The genuine threats that had been made to local councillors recently had meant that it had been more necessary to ensure that all reports are looked at. Well, that bit's fair enough, but you would look at these reports and think, we don't need to visit this lady just for making comments that these guys probably should resign if they've been caught up in this scandal of sending these kind of messages. Now, I'm nowhere near done. I have a lot more to say about this, but allow me 2 minutes just to break the mood with something a little bit more fun. Don't go away. And now for a moment, something a bit more fun. Most of you know by now I'm a bit of a fitness fanatic, and so I'm always drinking lots of water. But that's why I was so pleased when a company called Holy reached out to me, because they take ordinary water and turn it into a fantastic and delicious energy drink, iced tea or hydration drink full of vitamins and antioxidants with no rubbish in there that you would find in some energy drinks without naming any names. This is by far my favourite. It's the strawberry and kiwi, but they come in a huge range of different flavours, and they also now do milkshakes as well. In fact, milkshakes are a bit of a weakness of mine and the boys, and we absolutely love these. The last time I did this, the hazelnut was absolutely my favorite. It's really hazelnutty. I mean, this is a real weakness of mine. I love hazelnut drinks, just like you go for a hazelnut latte or something like that in a coffee shop. These are absolutely brilliant, but I think we have a new favorite in town. This is the strawberry. This is absolutely delicious. It's just like those you would buy in the supermarket, only you can make it at home and have it on hand whenever you wish. And so whether you want to drink water or milkshakes or whatever you like, you know that they are full of vitamins and antioxidants, and you can have them to hand. Now, if you've not tried Holy before, I'd strongly recommend you go with their starter set deluxe, because that gives you 42 servings of a range of flavors in the different drinks, and it comes along with a fantastic glass bottle that I showed you earlier. Obviously, this is with water, so you can see what it looks like, but obviously you can use it to have your flavored drinks and carry them around whenever you wish. And if you're a bit like me and you like things that are a little bit more colorful, you can look out for the special SpongeBob bottles that you'll find on their website as well. This I will be carrying around. But most of all, I have to emphasize that the milkshakes are absolutely to die for. Splash of milk, 1 spoon of powder, give it a shake, and you've got milkshake on the go. Of course, as a partner to my channel, you get a fantastic discount, which if you want a straightforward discount, you can use Barrister 5 and get £5 off at the checkout. Or if you prefer percentages, which would work well for a larger order or ongoing orders, use the code Barrister for 10% off your order, and that will be better for larger or ongoing orders. But do check them out. I would not promote something to you that I wouldn't use and I wouldn't enjoy myself. These are fantastic drinks, and they are healthy for you. So take it from a fitness fanatic, give these a try, and thank you to Holy for sponsoring this video. And then oddly enough, the police said on this day, officers were making 203 arrests for crimes like assault, burglary, and the R word. Tackling these priorities are why this complaint was dealt with only 2 days after it was reported. But still, I suggest that this is something that doesn't need the police involvement at all. And this is not the only story like this either. We can go back and look at stories like this one, which I will also link below. You can pop over to X and have a look, where Carolyn Farrow, journalist, was arrested on suspicion of posting a meme. So no proof that she'd posted it. It turns out she hadn't posted it, from my understanding. She was doing something. I think she was playing the church organ or something, and it wasn't her, nothing to do with her. But she was arrested and taken to a cell, arrested in front of her children, taken to a cell on suspicion of posting a meme. Now, what kind of a state of law are we coming to when police are coming out questioning people over things they've posted on social media? Chris Philp makes comment on this as well, which I'll have to move down, otherwise you won't be able to see, and says this is a total waste of police time. People's free speech is being infringed. So-called non-crime hate incidents are not working. Pausing there, I've spoken about these before. If you're not familiar with what they are by now, this is where there's no crime. They accept no crime has taken place, but someone has, not even necessarily the prospective victim or complainant, but somebody else has the impression that there might have been some offence taken, and it might be something to do with hate, and so they report that to the police. There's not necessarily any evidence involved, no finding of fact involved, certainly no crime involved. That's why it's a non-crime hate incident. It's just something that somebody perceives to be something that might be something to do with hate. They report that to the police, and the police then record this as a non-crime hate incident. There's a big reason that's a really big problem. But they record this, and I think this is ridiculous, but they record these regardless of any finding of fact, regardless of any prosecution, and they record it, and it could well pop up on an enhanced DBS check. So if you work with children, or if you work in a school or a health organisation, something like that, this might pop up, and this might cause you problems later on. And we've seen cases where these have been challenged, and they go against the grain of natural justice. Now, again, back to this tweet, so-called non-crime hate incidents are not working. The police should only investigate actual crime or where there's a real and imminent risk of it. The police must get back to their actual job, Chris Philp says. And I absolutely agree. I think this is utterly preposterous. Toby Young, director of Free Speech Union, said in the Mail article, "This is typical of the weird authoritarian atmosphere that's grown up in Britain since Keir Starmer took control. Good luck persuading Greater Manchester Police to send 2 police officers to your house if you're burgled or your car is stolen." Now, people might think that that is going over the top a little bit with the comparison, but it absolutely isn't. As a lawyer, I can give you several examples, both professionally and from my friends, from whom I've garnered this information, and I can absolutely tell you that in certain scenarios, the police simply do not assist in real crime. Even though one such case, I did a video about it, you can probably, actually Google's quite good in finding my videos these days. Google BlackBeltBarrister and then the story and it'll probably pop up the video for you. But Google this one, where the victim was brave and the police did nothing. And I opened with a bit of a quip saying, today's episode of where the police just didn't bother to do anything. Now, in that case, she had the CCTV evidence of the phone thief who'd taken the phone from her, and it was tracked, so she knew exactly where it was, and she went to the police, and the police simply said, well, we can't do anything. She said, I know where the phone is. I can pinpoint to the house where this phone is, and I've got the CCTV evidence, because actually she was a trainee barrister at the time. She's a fully qualified lawyer now, but she had the evidence from the coffee shop, CCTV evidence of this person stealing the phone. Crystal clear image. You could see who it was. She could pinpoint the phone. The police could have gone there. They could have retrieved the phone and detained the culprit in the process. But they did nothing. So it got worse than that. What she did is she, with a couple of friends, bravely / stupidly, actually went to that place and confronted the thief and got her phone back. Now, that's why I said it was brave. But she shouldn't have to do that. She should have the police assistance in doing that. That is why stories like this get me so frustrated. If they can send out a detective sergeant and a constable to speak to someone over a social media post where they do not go out, where the phone is tracked to a location, and they know that the victim of this theft is going to retrieve it themselves, and she even rang up and said, I would like some assistance. And they said, no, we can't do that. We can't send anybody out. Another incident with a car. Car had been stolen. Now, the car had got some software on it, so not only did it track the location of the car, but also whether the boot was open, the bonnet was open, the doors were open, etc. And again, it could track the car, pinpoint the location, one particular garage in one particular house, exactly where it was, and it was his car. And so he spoke to the police and said, can you come and get my car back? And they said, well, we can't just go into the house. We're not allowed to do that. We can't get a warrant for that. We can't get any kind of search warrant or anything for that. And that's nonsense, because the car was stolen. So they could have applied, if necessary, for a warrant with the evidence to say, we are likely to find this vehicle in this house because it's pinpointed by the tracking location to that house. And yet the police did nothing. And there's countless stories like this. I mean, the police might on the one hand say that there are thousands of phone thefts and thousands of car thefts and therefore we can't do them all. But at the same time, if they are, how many of these cases are they going out, arresting people, detaining people, questioning people over stuff where they admit that there's no crime taken place? But the problem with these non-crime hate incident reports is that if they end up on your DBS check, that can cause you serious problems down the line. And that is fundamentally wrong on every level of the word. So an unusually frustrated video from me on this one, because I cannot possibly tell you that this has a really sensible bearing in law when it really doesn't. The only tinge of a sense that I can get from this is that there have been genuine threats, I presume. I don't know quite what they are, but I presume there have been genuine threats towards some of these counsellors. But I still don't think that, from what I've read here, I don't think that these posts of hers cross any line. They just say, well, I hope he does the decent thing and resigns. And somehow I think his ego won't allow it, she's quoted to have said on here. I'm not really sure what else they're looking at. She said, not looking good for Councillor Sedgwick, apparently she wrote, according to the Mail here. And then someone else said, will you be resigning? Now, these are all very valid questions of people in public office. If you add questions and criticism and commentary of people in public office, they have to stand scrutiny. And that is exactly what's going on here. Other criticism of it here, Sir Alec Shelbrooke said, this is a waste of police resources. The government cannot seriously be saying that they'll be looking for efficiency in public spending while police officers are taken away from crimes to go and knock on doors of residents and they say, you haven't actually committed a crime, but we want to have a word. Now, I would understand this if there was some kind of real report of crime, but the victim said, look, it's just a bit of a scuffle. I'd appreciate you having a word, but we don't need to take it any further than that. So if there had been some actual kind of crime taking place, but the victim of that crime had said, look, I really don't want to get involved. I don't want to push it. I don't want to go to court. I would just appreciate the police turning up and having a word. Then in cases like that, that would probably suffice. That would probably be justified. But in cases like this, where there is no crime, there is nothing to record, I really do think this is nothing more than a complete waste of time. Another Tory councillor, Liam Billington, who was contacted by Mrs. Jones for help, said, what Labour are now trying to do is control free speech. As a councillor, I know I get things wrong. I'm not perfect, but it's a democratic right to be able to criticise your elected officials. Now, we can all get things wrong sometimes. We can all overreact sometimes, but regardless of that, that is part and parcel of free speech. Just because sometimes you might cross a line because you've done that in the heat of the moment or whatever, that doesn't automatically mean you should be prosecuted and then sent through all that process. Judges have previously said that you don't always have to be held to such strict boundaries all the time. I mean, for example, if you act in self-defense and you go a little bit over the top because in the heat of the moment you act a little bit more than you should do, then the law says, well, you don't have to precisely measure the use of force. It does have to be reasonable that you believe in the circumstances in self-defense. But if you go a little bit beyond that because it's in the heat of the moment and you are just obviously stressed in that moment, the law doesn't look for a perfect measure of force. And that's with the use of force in self-defense. When we're talking about posts here, and she's obviously made these posts in frustration, or maybe not in frustration, she's just made genuine thoughts of whatever she thought at the time. That's perfectly fine. She's allowed to do that. Syrian Duncan Smith also said, I've had people say they don't want to vote for me and being rude about it. What am I going to do? Report that? That's ludicrous. It's normal and should be left well alone. Now, Rupert Lowe's had his fair share of criticism, but a lot of people respect him and love him at the same time. You can't always win everything over. I've had my fair share of criticism on this channel. I take that on the chin. I'm not bothered. You know, I get 80 to 100,000 comments a month on my channel, on my multiple channels and TikTok and various places. And, you know, I get all sorts of criticism. Frankly, you just take the rough with the smooth. It is what it is. I'm sure there are some in there that are probably actionable. There are probably some that really do cross a threshold. You know, I've not yet had such serious ones that I've really had to go to the police and say, you must prosecute this. Maybe there would be at some point, but even then I would take the view and, well, is it really worth it? Do I really need to do that? Obviously, we have to draw a line somewhere, but people say what they wish in the heat of social media. And in fact, in many occasions, I've turned people around. I've said, well, actually, if you think about this, and then I've got into a conversation, then they've apologized and we have a serious, sensible conversation about it. And away we go. And that's really how these things should be. But sending a detective sergeant and a constable to grill a woman over social media comments, I think is quite ridiculous. But let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is absolutely in the face of free speech. We have to defend it. We have to speak out about it. And the irony of all this is, if her comments are so bad, then instead maybe the police should be turning that attention to the counsellors that said those messages in those WhatsApp groups in the first place. You know, for example, the hope you die messages that were in these WhatsApp group in the first place. Maybe they should be focusing on them instead. But those are my thoughts. Like I said, slightly more opinionated video than usual, but I think that's warranted. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.